with a panel discussion led by our panel of distinguished guests. Our panel is comprised of the guest of honor, Yang Mulia Dato Paduka Haji Ali bin Haji Apong, the Deputy Minister at the Prime Minister's Office and Chairman of the Brunei Economic Development Board, Yang Mulia Mr. Lemy Gresh, CEO of MezzVest, as well as Yang Mulia Mr. Andrew Jeffries, CEO of Oxford Business Group. I now hand over to Yang Mulia Muhammad Ayub, who will chair the panel discussion.
Thank you to our MC Raihan. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Salatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alihi wa sahbihi wa ba'd. So welcome back to the Brunei Gallery Lecture Theatre and to the second half of this morning session, where we look forward to the panel discussion with Yang Mulia Dato and the distinguished guests. As you know, my name is Muhammad Ayub, and I will chair, or rather moderate, the panel discussion this morning. So joining me on the stage, Yang Mulia Dato, our guest of honor, who delivered the keynote speech earlier. And once again, thank you, Dato, for that. As you know, Dato is the Deputy Minister at the Prime Minister's Office, Brunei, as well as Chairman of the BEDP. To my immediate right is your left, is Mr. Lemy Gresh. Lemy is, I'm sure he'll introduce himself later on, but just a couple of words. He's partner and also CEO at MezzVest, which he founded back in 2000. I think from the name itself, MezzVest, you can see it's mezzanine investing is what it does, and it's an award-winning pan-European mid-market private debt investment group. So I think at this point it's also worth mentioning that Yang Mulia Lemy sits on the Nurture Committee of Lebanon Life, which stands for Lebanese International Finance Executives, where their stated mission is to nurture the next generation of young Lebanese, in fact, to succeed in finance via internships, via mentorships, via scholarships, etc. So I'm sure we can learn something from them today. And at the far end of the table is Yang Mulia Mr. Andrew Jeffries. Andrew is the founder and chief executive officer, CEO of the Oxford Business Group, OBG, which he also formed back in 1994. And so OBG publishes the what's now an annual publication, the report Brunei Darussalam. The latest edition, 2014, we have with you today. It was only released a couple of months back. So, regarding the format, I suppose I start off with a general question, which I would pose to the panelists and have them pitch in or contribute an answer to, and then we'll open to the floor and we'll take a couple of questions from the audience. And I'd like to remind the audience to also introduce yourselves, state your name, the institution that you're at, as well as the course that you're doing, and before posing your question to the relevant panelists. So I think coming along the lines of the symposium theme, inspiring creative research, and also coming along the lines of what Yang Mulia Dato mentioned in his keynote speech, I think one of the major themes, aside from that entrepreneurial zeal and having that courage to step outside one's comfort zone, I think apart from that there was a lot of talk on productivity, and there was a lot of talk on cost effectiveness. And I think one thing that we can start the discussion off with is probably realizing that a lot of things are now interdisciplinary. You have scientists, you have engineers, you have doctors, administrators, lawyers, and so on, people from across the board. They're coming together, they're solving problems which are borrowed from other professions and which are borrowed from other fields. So I wonder if we could probably start with Yang Mulia Dato. Could you possibly add to this regarding this cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary nature of everything that we do today? I welcome Yang Mulia Dato to add to that.
Good to see you panel. Also my colleagues here also in the panel. It's not clear what is it a question on what is interdisciplinary expertise and professionals, especially in Brunei purposes. I think the way I approach it, you know, I'm actually in charge of economic policy in Brunei, so I have a lot of data on economy in Brunei. Maybe to set the scene also for myself, for my colleagues here, so that can be more objective in what we're discussing today. Let me brief you on the Brunei economy first. Brunei economy, as you know, is dominated by oil and gas, and about 65% of GDP is on oil and gas. So basically, the rest are agriculture, is fishery, forestry, less than 1%. So the rest is services sector. Economy has been stagnating in the last 10 years, growing about 1% per annum, compared to ASEAN, is growing about 5% per annum per year in the last 10 years. And even the world economy has been growing about 3% per annum. So our challenge is in how to grow the economy. So it will be connected with the statement question. We look at how different ways of generating economic growth in Brunei. And today I was talking about productivity because I like to make it short. But there are many policies. Basically, you in UK, you know people talk about monetary policy, fiscal policies, S&P policies. And we've done all those, but still not effective. In fact, not enough to me. Because we forgot that one simple thing, which is productivity. But even in UK, you listen to David Cameron talking about productivity from time to time. He talks about issue addressing issue of growth in the economy. But in many other places, you just click for past 20 years speeches by Lee Hsien Loong or Lee Kuan Yew. When we talk about economic growth, New Year's speeches, National Day speeches, or budget speeches, you go down for the past 20 years. They never forget mentioning productivity as the source of growth or as something they blame for any slowdown in growth. So productivity meaning Brunei is one of the lowest in the region and declining because we're dependent on oil and gas. Productivity is production and output over input. Right? So when the oil production fall from over 200,000 barrels per day in 2007 to 180,000 barrels per day today, that impact our productivity overall. So because it's over 65% of our GDP. But the many of the other countries are growing. But anyway, this oil and gas is very clear. But how about other sectors? That's why we, decision variable sectors are important. Be in communication, telecommunication, be in agriculture, fishery, forestry, logistics, in education, in healthcare. All the disciplines are needed in order to boost economic growth and also boost productivity in each sector. Like in the agriculture and fishery forestry. Agriculture, we produce only 1 metric ton of rice per hectare, for example. But in China, it's 6 metric ton per hectare. It's a big difference. In Korea, Taiwan, also 5 metric ton per hectare in production. And in Thailand, in Malaysia, about 2.5 times. It's not as high as Japan, but higher than us. In construction, the same. I don't know, we have the charts here, for example. My colleague says, showing some example. It's quite embarrassing. But, how can I explain to you if you don't have any examples? But in reality, we have to do everything in new ways, with new technologies. One example, simple example, a clerk can process 1,000 forms per year, for example. But we need him or her to process maybe 2,000 forms next year. So it's improvement in productivity. But the following year, he must process 4,000 per year. It has to be like that. It doesn't mean he works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's all technology, research, and working online, all those things. And as I said, also again to my colleague, one day you go to immigration, there's nobody there, it's just biometric. And there's custom, nobody there, it's all the your thing can be scanned by them, they know whether you're carrying illegal stuff or not. So again, whatever discipline you do, especially in skill, in research, they are all very important for contributing to the growth of our economy and to be more competitive. And a lot of things can be done, a lot of things to be addressed in Brunei because a lot of people are dropping out also. I mean, yes, we have many PhD students here, thank goodness, maybe 80 people, but there are many people are dropping out also in Brunei. Every year, 5,000 people drop out. So it's something we have to care about, and how to make them go back to school, because they're still young. In fact, the last few years, last 4 years, 8,000 of them we pick up and send them to private school. Anyway, that's maybe I
Yes, thank you. I think if I could take a step back and then rephrase my question, then I think it's how people from all sectors can propose solutions properly. And I think let's hear from Stanley Jeffries properly and chime in.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to come here on a Saturday morning, see so many people early in the morning at this Brunei Students Research Symposium. We've had several very, very good speeches. I think the fact that Dato Ali Apong himself, someone who is so central to what's going on in Brunei, comes here to hear what you've got to say, really underlines Brunei's commitment to the next generation and its understanding of the importance of education, and that can only be a good thing. It was a fabulous speech, Dato Ali, and I think underlining the importance of productivity is key. You briefly mentioned the middle income trap. Many of your neighbours have been stuck in the middle income trap for a long time. We saw what happened in South Korea, but of course we didn't mention that Malaysia, Thailand, several large countries in Southeast Asia really haven't solved that. The reason I was discussing in the break before we came in, the reason it's easy to see to make gains in Indonesia is that they're not there yet. Average income's about $3,500. It's easy to build an airport, make a new road, improve the infrastructure, reduce the bureaucracy and so on. So you'll see these high growth rates in Indonesia. It's a lot harder somewhere like Malaysia where you've got lots of infrastructural development already and so on. That's why they've struggled and they need to put themselves up a higher value income chain and they're trying and they are having some successes. But you can see the challenges there. The great statistic that's always worth reminding everyone is that in the 50s, South Korea had the same GDP and roughly the same population as Egypt. And we can see how that's changed. Now, they're both countries somewhere near a war zone, so that itself cannot be the reason. But you can see as those two, what were relatively similar economies have diversified in terms of income and so on. It really is a challenge to other nations to try and choose the right path. So it was great to see a presentation from Jade Yi Lim. Thank you very much, underlining the importance of over-reliance on oil. The one thing I will say is that we've been covering Brunei for 10 years, and the understanding that there needs to be diversification has always been there, and the commitment to try and change it. It's not easy. But the great thing about Brunei, unlike many of the countries, we cover 38 countries, but the truth about Brunei is that people know what the problems are, and there are regular discussions about them, and that's half the game. If we can know it, if the information's out there, if we can start to work out how to challenge, it's not easy. But the fact that we're having these presentations about there's a discussion that goes on there, I think is fabulous. And finally, of course, the presentation from Amalina, I think is was great. It really underlines, to me at least, how educated this young population in Brunei really is and what opportunities there are out there for them. Now, it's easy to have a sort of doom and gloom scenario, and it's easy to forget that the fundamentals of Brunei are so strong. I spend a lot of my time making presentations in countries where they have arguably far more challenges than Brunei has. in the end, you're a high-income country, you have a small population, you have extremely good infrastructure. I mean, someone mentioned traffic jams, and that's fine, but I'd like them to go to Jakarta. They were going to talk about traffic jams. So yeah, I spent a lot of time in Brunei, but one of the things I don't worry about in Brunei particularly is traffic jams. So, of course, I think it's great that you're discussing these things, and there are infrastructural challenges, of course, but go to Manila. Go to, where they have a serious issue with the amount of jobs they need to produce. In Egypt, they need 2 or 3 million jobs a year just to create the people who leave, to keep the people who leave university employed. So within a global context, of course, Brunei is in a position of where you would want to be when you're approaching these challenges. And of course now the oil price has gone down and we need to deal with that. It's worth remembering it went down in 2009 for not very long. It's been down before. When I first visited the country in 1999, it was about $10. So this isn't a particularly crazy new world, and it can be exaggerated. But let's remember we have strong political stability, we have strong economic stability, we have a small population, great infrastructure, and we have a real understanding of the commitment and the importance of education. And to me, these are the fundamentals, which mean that Brunei really is on the right path. Now, that was a huge build-up to answering your question. Your question was about the sort of independence, sort of the connection story of various roles that come together to create something. And of course, one of the issues of having a small population is it's harder to build national champions. So when you look at South Korea, you've got these companies like LG and Samsung that have been created over a large period of time, have a huge domestic market. And so it is a challenge to Brunei in some ways to sort of bring such large groups together and do it. However, it does have a huge, has huge possibilities in the service industry as a whole. Why? It's in the centre of its region. If you look at Southeast Asia, it's sort of, we were discussing earlier, what would be the Switzerland of Asia if you could, if you were asked to give an example. I made a presentation at Harvard Business School and I was asked, what's the Switzerland of each area? South America, Africa, and Asia. And for Asia, I say, well, it's sort of Singapore and Brunei together, sort of somehow creates that sort of stability and an impact you've got there. And I think that's the advantage, that in services as a whole, when you're talking about law or accounting, a lot of these areas, of course, Brunei, with a very respected legal system, can certainly compete. But I would certainly say that that's an area, those are areas which are a real challenge to Brunei. It wouldn't be necessarily where I played my card. There's so many possibilities in ICT, in halal, in this high-tech, general high-tech industries that we can see. And I think that's where I would start to play, improve agriculture, of course, because it needs to be done, and various other downstream work with oil and gas. So I've probably said enough for now. But thank you again.
Thank you very much. And I think we spoke about the role of technology, and this was a speech earlier, how you increase productivity through using technology and through things that we didn't have in the past, and these are things we call innovations. And I think, I don't know, in the financial world, for example, or in the investment world, how have technologies emerging, new, or even things that we've had for some time, how do they level the playing field, or how do they create, a different dynamics, if you like. So, and as a person, Lemy yourself, you look into a lot of different countries and a lot of different companies in those countries. Maybe you'd like to say a few words, and I'll leave it to you.
Thank you. How much time have I got?
I'll let you know.
No, you need to tell me a bit more that I can pace myself. Although interventions, I haven't thought so much about that question because innovation is something that we, on the financial world, we take advantage of, and then we have to suffer from. It's something that we adapt to and we're forced to adapt to. everything I know today, when I was your age, I would have accomplished more. Probably my dad did tell me, but I did not listen. The same way that I see my children, and they're 23 and 25, not listen to me, but they listen to other adults. So I hope what I can tell you is going to be the use of when you move into a generation where in your country oil is going to become, natural resources will be important but less so, and it's something you're going to have to do because that's your future and that's your well-being. So let me give you maybe a few words about myself. I was born in Egypt, but my parents got expelled from Egypt under Nasser and the Soviets. I was age 7, and my parents pretty much lost everything. My father was an entrepreneur. He was late in life and he had to start a career again as an employee. So one of the things my parents really focused on is that I get an education. We moved to Lebanon, because this is where my mother was from. Moved to Lebanon, and they made sure they sent me to the best secondary school, and then they sent me to university in Europe. And that allowed me to get a first job in a bank. And from there, I think with determination, but always focusing on what my clients needed and trying to give to my clients what they need and try to do it better than my competitor, I was able to progress. I don't know, I'm sure everyone has heard of Goldman Sachs, who is the premier investment bank. All my life, I wanted to work for Goldman Sachs. It was the role model for me. And in 2000, I was offered that opportunity. And I decided not to take it. I decided to take an 80% pay cut to start this company, MezzVest. So we do some specialized financing, we have some investors. It's like a mini bank. So why am I telling you this? Education is the passport into your progress. It not only will teach you skills that allow you to have a career, but it will allow you to teach a working method, a way to think, a way to interact amongst other adults and to build from there. The other thing I want to tell you is sometimes, like I did with Goldman Sachs, you have to move from one objective to another. You take a step back, you take a risk, and from there you try to do something better. And it is something that I think indirectly is confronting you. You are going to have to reinvent yourself for the good of your country and of yourself. Now, I just talked another couple of minutes. Not everything you try works. Failure is part of life. But if we were afraid of failure, we were petrified by failure, we would never do anything. We would never get on a plane, we would never get a new job, we would never get married, we would never raise kids. So, failure is something you have to embrace, and it's going to happen to you. You're going to have to bounce back from it. And as we say, you are going to have to fail better the next time. Lessons learned, what can I do better, and move on from there. And I have to tell you, I have failed so many times that I success is a long-term goal. It's not a sprint. It's not even a marathon. It's a series of marathons. And success comes from 2%, the idea, concept, and 98% doing it. And doing it constantly, every day. And I think you guys know this because you know that in your own research, on cancer cells, the concept, the idea, the original thought is 2%, and 98% is researching it, working through it, eliminating the options, and then putting it down into a form which is user-friendly. I just want to talk to you a little bit. My advice for you, young Brunei, your community, your family, your country is a source of strength. It's a place that you can go to where you recharge your batteries, where you feel good. But the world is your stage. You are world citizens. And you have to try to become the best in the world in your chosen field. Whether you do it outside of Brunei or in Brunei. In other words, this community is a source, is a plank on which you build. It's not a constraint for you to think that the world is not yours to try to be successful in it. I think I've talked enough.
Thank you very much for your kind words. I think when we talk about the symposium theme, inspiring creative research, it's not just about the research, but importantly it's about the inspiring bit. A lot of things these days, they are not done in the same way that they've always been done. We need to take a step out of the comfort zone, if you like, and then from there you can find new ways and new means. I think we'll start to take questions from the audience.
Foreign labor. I'm sure we've highlighted that Yang Mulia Dato has highlighted with regards to productivity, and how productivity needs to be improved in our country. We've seen how Dubai has had a success with foreign labor and dependency on them, on either expat CEOs or construction laborers. Brunei is no stranger to that similar model. Brunei does employ expat CEOs, and Brunei does employ foreign labor workers. But interestingly enough, from the statistics provided in terms of construction, Brunei has a very, very low productivity at 0.002 as compared to Singapore at 0.196. But Brunei and Singapore, you would probably tap from the same pool of construction workers or whatnot. So the question is there any opinion in terms of what we can improve on? Is it a management issue, or is it something that needs to be improved? So, any thoughts?
Many area of productivities that we should check in Brunei. Yes, go back to this. But the thing is, in GDP, in economies, our GDP today is $20 billion. That's all. And the workforce in Brunei is 200,000. Population 400,000. The workforce is over 200,000. So productivity is the output there. 20 billion divided by 200,000 divided by 1 million, equivalent to 0.1. So that's important. But at the GPT and in my office, we've done an analysis. We look all over the world. In finance sector, who is the best in productivity? Probably London. In logistics, probably the best, probably Amsterdam. for example. In agriculture, probably China, example. In manufacturing, probably Germany. So what are those productivities? Then we average them to total, it's like 0.33. So you have to be, like the others, has to be 0.33. The economy must be not 0.1. So suppose we want to be to 80 billion economy. That's what Mr. was saying. But it's actually what we are calculating also. You want to be the top 10 in the world. In GDP per capita in 2035, your economy has to be 80 billion compared to 20 billion today, which is only 4 times increase. It's not impossible. 6.5% growth will bring you there. Mathematically, it's not. You calculate. So 80 billion. If your GDP per capita is 80 billion, if your productivity is still 0.1, you need 800,000 people working at the time. You can't have it. Meaning you have to have 1.6 in population. So that's why. But if you apply the 0.33 productivity, you only need 242,000 people working. That can be done by technology. But back to your example here. We're talking about, it's just examples. Meaning, what's the difference between, say, Brunei and Singapore in the way they build residential houses? The way we do it is always like, the normal thing using you do the later foundation with the concrete and all that, and the piling, and then the wall with the bricks, and you have to do the concreting for the staircases, all those things. Whereas the others in Korea, where they do modular style, just like prefab types of housing. I mean, you can build houses. I mean, at BDP, we build houses at this, what is Kampong Mantiri. We build 4,000 houses. I mean, Ismail is just hand over the keys to the people today. We build 10 houses per day. Because it's a more modular, prefab type. They manufacture all the wall on one side, and they just, fix 10 houses per day. That's how we do it. That's how we do it in the future anyway. I mean, you cannot build 10, 20, 30 stories building using bricks anymore. They're all using the new material, new technologies. That's why that's the difference is technology. Productivity is always technology. It's not about working more hours or longer hours. Not really. I think to simplify it, when we talk about productivity, it means technology, it means education, it means research. That's what it means. And what you're doing here in this symposium is great things. And the more you do it, the better. And hopefully more students, somebody told me today, that when you have more PhD students, why can we not improve productivity? Unfortunately, we have 80 students that we could have done more, we could have got more actually, if we didn't have many dropouts in the first place. So we have to tackle that anyway, but that's an issue, different issues. But you are here already. I think that's wonderful. Please go on, please focus on it and improve it further.
Yeah, I think we'll take another question from the.
Assalamualaikum and good morning. My name is Nurul Nabila Zainurin. Currently I'm in my final year studying BA Management Studies with Politics at Leicester. I'm aware that Brunei is moving towards higher productivity and higher output, but the concerns of global warming and in the world and in Brunei, I was wondering if Brunei is moving also towards sustainable economy, but if there's policies towards sustainable economy, can you tell me if there's any policies towards it?
Maybe Andrew could.
Well, the first thing to say is I had an audience with the Sultan at the end of November, and that was the third time that I met with him, and every time the most important commitment he makes is to the ongoing sustainable economy of Brunei, and of course to the rainforest and so on. So I think there's no question that actually in the case of Brunei, there's a real sort of profound understanding of the importance of that. And we see it not just in the petrochemical industry, but elsewhere. A lot of the development of the tourism industry, which we've not discussed yet, which of course has huge potential in Brunei. It's an incredibly beautiful country. There's a vast amount of things to see. The way that tourism industry itself has been developed has been within this whole vision of it being sustainable. So I think there's no question that there is a commitment to that. both on a sort of manufacturing level and elsewhere. And that's declared off.
We've got a question.
Hello, I'm Kieran Javan. I'm an entrepreneur from Brunei. My question is directed to Dato Ali and to Andrew. Dato Ali mentioned that in Brunei, the productivity is actually on a decline. So year after year, our productivity goes down. This decline, is that actually a symptom of another external factor? And has there been any research into what is the cause for the decline, and when did the decline begin? Did Brunei have a high point in productivity? And what would we need to target? Would we be able to target any of these external factors to then reverse the decline and then increase that productivity? Andrew mentioned earlier in Malaysia, one of the things that's happening is increasing the income of the people there, which would help in the development. However, in Brunei, one thing that we do know is that we do have high income already, and that could be one of the contributing factors to the decrease, which is counterintuitive. Would you speak to be able to lend any insight on that?
PDP decline actually because production is declining. They said that over 65% of our economy is oil and gas, and our output has been falling from $220,000 per day in 2007 to $230,000 per day last year, 2013. But last year it could be around the same. So that's why, that's the only reason why it fell significantly. But other sectors actually stagnating. It's not declining, but stagnating. It's not increased either. That's why we say, it's like a low-hanging fruit. How do you generate economic growth? I mean, they're not oil and gas anyway, because oil and gas I cannot control because, and one day it will fall anyway, finish anyway, don't worry about it. You may discover new oil in the deep sea water, but you will finish one day. You don't rely on it. But the other sectors, agriculture, fishery, forestry, telecommunication, transportation, healthcare, education, banking, finance. We have to increase productivity in this area. Even these areas are not increasing significantly. I don't have the example, but I tell you, can you show some other example? On productivity, we don't have it here. But I can give you many examples. Just in electricity, for example, there are two examples here. There are two providers of electricity in Brunei. One is the DES, the government, right? The DES, it's government supply electricity. They provide 60% of power or electricity in Brunei. 60%. The other provider of electricity is Brunei Power, providing 40% of power, right? So 100% today. So, however, input, number of people working. In DES, 1,000 people working there, the government sector. In Brunei Power, only 100 people working. See, this, demonstrate productivity is something that, is a low-hanging fruit we can improve. How come, DES has 10 times, workforce, but producing only 1.5 times power. This is not because current, it's been on for the last 10 years. But, so to me, it's a ways of doing things. I mean, it's not about agriculture, it's not about, why is it that only produce 1 metric ton, not 5 metric ton? It's the way we do irrigation, the way we treat soil. Again, these are all, we need scientists, we need engineers to help us to deal with this. But at the same time, we can do it quickly because, our revenue is falling. We have the money to do it now, we do it now. So, my answer is always that we have to focus on what is needed to be done in there, because if we don't do it, we'll be overtaken by other countries. There are other things I can say, but sometimes it's quite embarrassing because among non-Bruneians here, but you can talk to me.
I think one of the things that we've seen, throughout the morning, speech, the discussion, and so on, is, there needs to be a basic level of, economic literacy or financial literacy, being able to read reports and being able to follow the news and see how events around the world shape the economy, if you like. And I think maybe Lemy would like to add in about the importance of financial literacy, if you like.
Yeah, I can tell you even I did an MBA many years ago. The only thing I remember, and I still use, is accounting. Accounting, in my mind, is like cooking. It's like good behavior. You know, it is like arithmetic. You know, it is an essential skill for all of you, whether you plan to become a lawyer, an architect, a doctor. I have two children. One is a video game developer and the other one is in fashion. And I can tell you, I have forced them to take accounting courses because it allows you to track where you are. I've said one of the things that you need to do is bounce back from failures, tweak things, constantly play with your model. But accounting is a way that you measure your progress vis-a-vis your goals, how much money you spend, how much money you're making, how much money you're accumulating, and that also goes for the nation. What can we afford to do? Why are the numbers? Maybe if we wait too long, the numbers will stop adding up, and then we will all start suffering. So I can tell you, there are accounting courses online. If you're not having them, take them now.
I think, yes, I think if I just brought
I just wanted to come back on a couple of, you asked this question about productivity, and that's already rightly said because of the nature, the unusual nature of the Brunei economy, dominated by single source oil, which means if you produce less oil, productivity comes down. It is worth emphasising there that although you in theory can't do much about oil production, of course, you know, they renegotiated the M block. And that was a good example. There was discussion as to the rights with the Malaysian government. So if you want to make sure that you're going to get more oil out in the future, what you need to do is to politically solve that. And that, by the way, is another good example of the sort of role that Brunei plays, both locally and in the region. Is known as an honest broker. It sat down with the Malaysians. It was quite a contentious issue, and it was solved. As a result of that, the chances are in the future there will be more oil. You know, which is a good thing. So they certainly, whether it's using better technology or diplomacy, they are constantly trying to maintain those rates. And it's worth emphasising that. So there are ways, in some ways, to change that. A thing on foreign workers, we mentioned Emiratization, as it's known or Qatarization, as it's known in the region. Yes, you are not alone with this issue of having foreign workers. What matters with foreign workers, everyone has the same problem, which is exactly what's been said, which they take jobs that locals have. Is there in fact knowledge transfer, or is it just people sort of coming in? What matters is the end game if you're having foreign workers. You can become more efficient because as a local population you can learn from them, particularly when it comes to foreign CEOs and sort of higher up the income stream, of course. So that, it doesn't matter how wide foreign work, the number of foreign workers is in your country at any particular time. What matters is where it's going. Are you slowly replacing these people? Are you learning from these people? And so on. And I think, again, that's something that Brunei does and continues to do. So in and of itself, it's not a bad thing, but it needs to, it needs to be focused on. When I mentioned Malaysia, it's important to stress, I wasn't saying that they want a higher income, though of course they do want higher income. But to get that higher income, they have to go up higher up the value chain of manufacturing, which in simple terms means they used to make white, I'm 43, in the 80s, you bought your white t-shirts in places like Malaysia. Now you get them from China. So the reality for Malaysia was a lot of what it made simply wasn't economically viable anymore. So if they're not careful, they move with that development. They've got exactly the same struggle that we have in Brunei, they have in the Philippines, and Thailand, all these places, which is trying to effectively take Hoover and take every single low-end job straight out of Southeast Asia, which in fact used to sustain Southeast Asia to a vast extent, even things like car manufacturing until recently. So everyone's playing that game. The advantage you guys have is that you have a population that's very small and already you have a lot of capital and high income and so on. So you don't face the guns to the same degree. You can say the Philippines does, for example, where they're not cheap enough to fight China on that low income stuff, but they're not technologically advanced enough to start challenging South Korea in high manufacturing. That's when you get stuck. And a good example, if you're ever looking at one, is Turkey, which has done a phenomenal job over the last 15 years of getting itself higher up the value chain. Now, the final thing just about productivity is, of course, if you want to make the economy more productive, then there are some fundamental things you can do. And I think we had some good examples, but it's all your basics. It's things like privatization. It's reducing bureaucracy, it's reducing red tape, it's producing a better legal environment for companies. Brunei has the lowest combined personal and corporate taxes in ASEAN. That's huge. You guys can afford to offer companies that want to come and invest in Brunei the sort of fiscal deal that you don't get in the UK or anywhere. Because most of these governments need your money, and so as a result, they need to tax the income of corporates, which to a degree Brunei does not. So when it looks around, when it wants to attract companies to come in, it has all these fiscal advantages that a lot of other countries in the region do not have. So in other words, it certainly can reduce some of its red tape, it can improve its legal environment, and these are ongoing steps, which we see improvements all the time on that front. But at the same time, yes, it needs to itself see where there are areas where it may be able to shift from public to private ownership, if not entirely, then at least partially. And it's these big wins, these big steps, that will help the non-oil productivity improve. And the UK is a great example, where in the last 30 years a lot of stuff has gone through that process, and you do see these improvements. So I think there's some big ideas that can be done that will see those figures improve.
They say Masters dan mencemburu ya. So I think we'll cap off the discussion just to ask Frank Ali yang Dato that it's good that we've got this symposium in January, just the start of the year 2015. What do you see in store for Brunei? I mean, specifically, what do you see in store for the PDB for the rest of this year, 2015?
I think my colleague will be presenting about PDB later on. Just to put everything in perspective. I mean, although I sound like very pessimistic on the economy, it's just I pick up productivity. I mean, economic growth has been very slow. That's well known fact. I cannot change it. You cannot change it. But how do you stimulate economic growth? That's the question we'll answer. We've done many things. I mean, it's not that we haven't done anything. In fiscal policy, we've been spending a lot of money on RKN. In fact, we've been increasing the RKN 10, normally around 4 billion, becoming 8 billion now. We double it. And the thing is, people spend money also on what the budget they allocated. On the tax, as I was talking about, we've been reducing tax from 30% about 7 years ago to 18% today. And interest rates, unfortunately, it's still high but declining. I mean, high because the year is too low, a little bit higher than the others. In FDI, we've been very successful in entering FDI in Brunei. You heard about Simple Pharmaceutical in Brunei, you heard about CIT from Canada doing the helicopter simulation training in disaster management. You heard about the Chinese doing refinery, and you heard about the Korean is coming, last year and this year in the school field, reading food and pharmaceutical and cosmetics, using the halal branding. So we are progressing well in those meetings. Ease of doing business, we're hoping that we can improve this year through the intervention by the PM office. So as I said, there are many ways we are doing that, trying to get that control. But I was only focused on productivity because to me it's very, very fundamental. We address it sooner rather than later. And then the thing is, we have almost forgotten it because people don't understand. It's not easy to talk about productivity. And people confuse between productivity and production. Productivity is not new. I look at the budget speech by our finance director in 1960s. You know, and look at the old time. It was like written that productivity is an important tool to the economic growth. You know, it was written by in our English finance director time because we were under British. So when I say it was British, so in English. But the translation was different. It said increase production in Malay. Increase the pengeluaran. So it wasn't well. Even today it's the same. We confuse productivity and production. That's what I'm trying to say here. I'm trying to make sure that people understand correctly. Because everywhere you go, people talk to me, but the definition must be correct. The way we define it not quite right. That's why it's important for us here to help us to explain that it's not misunderstood. And on BDB, I think we continue to attract more FDI. And our focus is on Korea now, because we open an office in Korea, and we're standing office because the response from Korean companies are very good so far. And on SMEs, we're trying to pick up all the established companies in Brunei to improve their governance and to ensure that some of those companies are having revenue of 20 to 30 million. We want to make them 100 million sales or revenue in 5 years' time. How we do that? We after the governance, then we go into bringing them into acquisition or going overseas and introducing venture capital. We they can come into Brunei also try to look at potential companies that you can invest in, grow into multinational companies and going into IPOs. And of course, we are also focusing on research and innovation. And my group here today are mainly in the innovation and entrepreneurship. So we are encouraging more entrepreneurship, more startups among the youth in Brunei. And again, we rely on venture capital and angel investors to help us to accelerate that kind of initiative. But there are many more. Of course, you come over in Brunei in July during the holiday. Please come and visit us. We have other many facilities, including the animation lab and also design technology lab for new ventures and young people interested in pursue entrepreneurship in those particular areas. So I think with that, I think it will go back.
Thank you, Dato. Thank you, Lemy. Thank you, Andrew. I think keep your questions for after, and try to catch our panelists while you can. I pass the floor back to Rehan, our MC.
Thank you to all panelists, to the chair, and to the audience for that engaging discussion. I would like to take this opportunity to invite the chair, Yang Mulia of Muhammad Ayub, to present tokens of appreciation to our guest of honor and keynote speaker, Yang Mulia Dato Paduka Haji Ali bin Haji Apong. We also invite the chair to present tokens of appreciations to our panelists, Yang Mulia Mr. Lemy Gresh of MezzVest, and Yang Mulia Mr. Andrew Jeffries of Oxford Business Group.